Hey everyone, so I wanted to show you what I learned while taking this course on Udemy. The course is called JavaScript Understanding the Weird Parts. It's a very good course to take, even though it was recorded a while ago. It's still, the concepts still hold true today. So at this point in time, I've been kind of bouncing around. I somewhat finished the course a while ago. I didn't go all the way. I reached to the point where we were creating our own library and I stopped there. But recently I wanted to revisit it again, um, just so I could refresh the concepts of a prototype and uh, and also remind myself exactly what the new keyword does. So let's go to CodePen. And again, I mostly make these videos for myself and to make sure I understand the concept. But if this helps anybody else, even better. So we're going to click on profile. This is my CodePen. I have it under naive search. That's another video that I did. But I mostly use CodePen as almost as a scratch piece of paper. So let's start from the beginning. Okay. So basically, from what I understand, is each function has this prototype property, and it just sits there and never gets used. It's basically this blank object. But when you use a function as a function constructor, the prototype property comes into play. So let's start writing some code now. Um, let's define a variable and call it animals. And animals is going to be a function. And that function, we're going to say, we're going to take our pet's first name and also their favorite treat. Okay? All right. And one of the cool things that that course shows you is it kind of walks you through on how jQuery, the library jQuery is built. And one of the neat things that jQuery does um, is instead of having whatever users of that library repeatedly use the new keyword, they they kind of automatically initialize it by returning a function constructor when they call the animals variable. So for instance, we have we have this variable called animal. Animal is going to be a function, and we're going to return a function constructor. So we're going to return new animals, and we're also going to give animals a property called init, and init is going to be a function, okay, and it's going to take in the same properties we passed into animals. So for instance, okay, so here we're returning a new function constructor called animals.init. And again, it's taken the same properties as the animals, as our variable animal. When we call a function constructor, this new keyword creates an empty object, and as that object, its prototype is going to be the function that we called next. So for instance, this this new keyword is going to create an empty object, and it's going to point to the animals.init as its prototype. Okay. Okay, so that's all well and good. Let's click save. Okay. So then let's define what our animal.init function does. So animals.init is going to equal a function, that takes in those properties, the first name and our pet's favorite treat. Okay, and then we're going to use this keyword. Let's see, first name is going to equal fname. Okay, and this dot treat is going to equal treat. Okay, so the first name is going to equal to fname, our argument that we're passing in here, and our pet's favorite treat is going to be whatever argument we pass in as treat. Okay. Okay, so now that we did that, let's try and use it now before we go any further. So let's call a variable const Dexter. That's my dog's name, and we're gonna call animals, and our dog's first name, which again is Dexter. And then we're going to pass it in his favorite treat. For now, I'm going to say bacon. Okay, so let's console.log Dexter and see what comes up. Let's see. That's clear. Make sure we don't have any errors. Okay, we don't. Beautiful. And as you can see, it used the function constructor. It set this first name as Dexter and treat as bacon. Beautiful. Okay, so one of the other interesting things that one of the lectures showed is how to reassign the prototype of where this new empty object is going to point. So let's do that. Okay, we're going to give animals another property, and we're going to say animals.prototype is going to equal an empty object. Okay. And then we're going to say animals.init.prototype equals animals.prototype. Okay, so basically what's happening here is, again, every time animals gets called, we return a function constructor, and instead of this empty object, when this empty object gets created, it's going to still use this function, but its prototype is going to be redirected to this animal's prototype up here. That's what this line does. So again, when we use a function constructor, it gets access to this prototype property, or that's when it comes into play. So animals.init.prototype, which would be essentially the prototype of our empty object that we're creating up here, is going to be reassigned to animals.prototype. So let's define a function here, or give it a property that'll be a function. So we're going to call greet, or we're going to name the property greet, and it's going to be a function. Okay, and then in that function we're going to say console.log hello. Ooh. Okay, so let's see what happens. Let's see what's in our console right now. We're going to clear all this. Okay, let's refresh our browser. Okay, So we have our animals.init. Let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, so we have this proto object. We see it here. Greet. Perfect. So now we should have access to this greet method that we found up here. So let's try and see if we can call it. Not greet. Okay, and let's call the function. And there it is. Beautiful. Let's clear our console. So again, we have a variable called animals. Animals is equal to a function, which is going to return a new function constructor, which is animals.init. So we're just setting another property called init to our animals variable. Animals.init is equal to a function which takes in a first name and our pet's favorite treat. And then we set it to this dot first name, this dot treat, which is going to equal our pet's first name and our treat parameter that we're passing in here. Okay. And then what we want to do is we want to redirect our prototype property that gets created every time we call, that gets created when we call a function with a new keyword. Okay, and we redirect it to animals.prototype. And then we have this variable called Dexter, which gets, we call our animals function. And here we call our Dexter.greet method that lives in animals.prototype. And you can keep adding to this, to the prototype. For instance, I could write in insult and write a function and console.log I hate you. Okay. So we could call it now. It's called insult. And there it is.